So a very massive purge of online content has actually just happened, and it's being talked about a little bit, but I don't think it's being talked about enough because it's pretty crazy what's actually happened with this whole situation. Now, it primarily takes place on Reddit, at least what I'm talking about today primarily took place on Reddit, but knowing how these social media tech companies all kind of interact with one another, and it seems like they've done coordinated things like this in the past, I wouldn't be surprised if this online purge continued and we saw more stuff along the internet's lines getting wiped. So Reddit is basically just a forum website. It's one of the most popular websites, but you go on there, there's a bunch of different forums on different topics, the r/s and whatever. You go through, you read, you interact with other people, upvote, downvote, things like that. Honestly, I'm not too keen on Reddit. I'm not a huge fan of it or anything. I mean, I guess it's okay to occasionally browse here and there, especially on subjects that I actually really care about, but Reddit has taken aim at some of its communities and completely wiped them out. Now, Reddit has been quarantining subreddits and things like that for a long time. I mean, it's not like this is out of left field and like no one should ever have expected this to happen or anything crazy like that, but Reddit just took out 2,000 different communities on their platform, and honestly, I think it's pretty big because these people are going to seek refuge first off on other websites, so, they're going to come to, I don't know, YouTube or Twitter or whatever, and that's where they're going to kind of, try and rebuild these communities, so you might see a rise of these people going across the internet doing things elsewhere, but also because there's a lot of criticism against taking actions like this. A lot of people say that websites like Reddit, Twitter, Facebook have all become like town squares of discussion in our modern society, where, as back in the day, if people wanted to have conversations about whatever, they had to go meet up somewhere. They had to go to a physical place and meet and actually discuss these things. But now, you don't really have to do that. It's a lot easier to just type in Reddit on the computer, follow a couple subreddits that, talk about subjects you're passionate in, and just have conversations with probably way more people virtually instantly. So a lot of people have kind of said that that's what's going on, and that Reddit basically and other communities and social medias should almost be kind of restricted in what they're allowed to do against what people are saying, simply because they think that due to their sheer size and power over like the discussion in our society, that they could potentially be violating the First Amendment and kind of holding people's words against them and things like that in situations where they really shouldn't be. Now, that's neither here nor there. One of the more, I guess, big ones that Reddit just banished was r/the which I've never personally been on this subreddit, so I can't like personally attest to this or anything, but apparently r/the was like, obviously real big into Trump. They're like some of his biggest supporters and whatnot. There's lots of like conspiracy theories and like, a lot of shit thrown at people who are critical of the president and whatnot. And it kind of garnered a reputation as being, a really negative place. But once again, I can't really personally confirm or deny that. I've never been on there. So Reddit announced on Monday that it is shutting down a forum dedicated to President Trump's most ardent fans, saying that it repeatedly violates the online platform's rules against harassment, hate speech, and content manipulation. The community forum, known as a subreddit, was called the Donald _ of course, and had nearly 800,000 users. Trump himself has been known to share memes that posted to the Donald and other parts of Reddit. Long a magnet for conspiracy theories and sharp attacks on the president's critics, the Donald has faced backlash before. Reddit has taken action over content encouraging violence and had threatened already to block the subreddit completely if the moderators, who are volunteers, did not take down the abusive material. Now, officials at Reddit have determined that the forum where diehard Trump fans congregate online cannot police itself. So I just want to point out, 800,000 people, that is a huge amount of people in a community, right? I mean, that's essentially like a large major city in the United States, full of people who were part of this subreddit, and most of which I would assume were either actively participating in discussion or at some point was actually active on the website or whatever. That's once again neither here or there, I guess. But regardless, that is a huge subreddit. That is a lot of people, and that realistically is a lot of conversation that has basically been wiped out. Now, of course, there's been a lot of debate on whether or not it's actually positive discussion that moves a conversation forward, or if it's essentially just a bunch of shit posting that really kind of just brings down everything. I can't confirm or deny it. Isn't really my place to do so, but Reddit is a place for creating community and belonging, not for attacking marginalized or vulnerable groups of people. Everyone has a right to use Reddit free of harassment, bullying, and threats of violence. The company said in a new content rules that it actually unveiled on Monday. Reddit, which is the 6th most popular website in the United States, announced the crackdown on the Donald as part of a wider enforcement of its hate speech policies. It said it was banning some 2,000 Reddit communities, including the left-leaning subreddit Chapo Trap House, over rule violations. Reddit said that the vast majority of the subreddits affected were already inactive. Now, I have no idea if the Donald was inactive or whatever, people weren't using it, I don't know, but 2,000 communities, one of which having 800,000 different users, I mean, we're talking about potentially millions of users now being, cut off of conversation about specific topics from different things. Now, of course, legally, Reddit kind of has the right to do so. It's their website, you sign up for the terms of service, you agree to the, content policies and whatnot. So at a certain point, Reddit can step in and do things like this, and it is perfectly legal as of right now. Once again, there is a lot of opposition to that idea, and a lot of people say that kind of it actually infringes on First Amendment rights here in the United States, and it kind of banishes the ability of free speech, because if a website like Reddit has a political leaning, I mean, hypothetically, they're kind of protected to shut down any opposing stuff that's posted on their website. If they were leaning Republican, they could block out Democratic voices, or if they were Democratic, they could block out Republican voices. Now, Reddit is the latest social media company to announce new limits on what users can post. It is part of a broad shift away from the hands-off approach long embraced by online platforms that have claimed to be neutral in the face of whatever users publish. Now Reddit and other popular sites that help define political discourse are drawing lines that the companies say cannot be crossed on speech that glorifies violence or hate. Twitter has placed labels on Trump tweets deemed to include factual distortions or seen to be as inciting violence. Facebook, which had been reluctant to take any action on the president's posts, recently has removed Trump's content. Last week, it announced that it will be placing warning labels on problematic posts and will remove content that incites violence or attempts to suppress voting. Facebook's policy reversal arrived as a growing number of major advertisers, including Starbucks, Ford, and Coca-Cola, joined a boycott of the social network that's meant to draw attention to hate speech and misinformation on the platform. Snap, which owns Snapchat, has said it will no longer promote Trump's account after determining that comments to the president's posts could be seen as encouraging violence. Also on Monday, Twitch, the Amazon-owned site for streaming games, said that it temporarily suspended Trump's account, according to a Twitch spokesperson. Now that's a lot to unpack, that's definitely a big word stew and whatnot, but basically speaking, Silicon Valley and the tech companies out there have realistically been taking a stand against Trump over the recent months due to the things that he said and some of his followers have said in comments and things like that. Now, if you've been watching the channel for a little while and you remember this video, you might remember I actually did talk about Trump trying to take action against websites like Twitter, basically all because they put those warning labels across what he was tweeting. Trump wants to remove these websites' protected status as social networks and make them actually be held accountable for not staying quote-unquote neutral, because obviously, they're putting all these warning labels on Trump content, they're removing some of it from being promoted, and, they're putting warning labels on his tweets and his posts, or they're suspending him. Well, he sees that as being unfair. He sees that as right-winged people being suppressed, and his people on the Republican side of the debate as having their opinions silenced because he believes that these companies lean left. Now, we've seen a lot of examples of things like this happen over the recent months and years, but this is definitely a pretty major step forward in all this, because this is one of the first times that we've seen a big company like this just completely erase a bunch of stuff. 2,000 communities, one major one being the Donald, and of course, there's even left-wing ones in there. So this kind of stuff, a lot of people, they argue that it's going to end up harming public discourse, because once again, just think about this one logically. Back in the 1920s, if you wanted to talk politics, you'd go down to the bar with 8 of your friends or whatever after work, and you'd sit there and you'd read the newspaper or whatever, and you'd sit there and discuss things, and that's how it was done. But hey, it's 2020. People are getting online faster than ever, more people than ever. Political misinformation is spreading like wildfire on the internet. It's just what's going on. Public discourse is shifting, and the internet is a big part of that. Even in the 2000s and early 2010s, the internet, even though it was a very formidable place for people to talk about these things, wasn't addressed as something like it is today. Today, they're legitimately considering these kinds of things the centers of public debate. And you have to understand why, because we're talking about websites with hundreds of millions, if not billions of users, hundreds of millions of active users every month, talking about all kinds of different topics. And yeah, we've seen these kinds of things happen before, like just back in the election cycle, Facebook had the whole Cambridge Analytica scandal where, basically speaking, polls were getting sent out to people, and depending on what they, thought politically, they were getting a bunch of ads and misinfo and different articles and stuff basically recommended to them and promoted to them in different ways. And it created a huge scandal. It was one of the biggest data privacy and data breaching scandals of all time. And it shifted a lot of data privacy conversations around even here on the internet. Facebook to this day still reels from that kind of thing, but purges like this are not really unheard of. Usually it takes place against like one person. Like all these companies, as this article has described, they've taken jabs at Trump and his supporters before on different things. Whether or not you agree or disagree with them, I think we can all understand, that, they kind of took shots at him. They kind of did things that obviously were going to irk him and his supporters. But like, I remember not that long ago when Alex Jones was essentially in one fell swoop just basically banished from most of the internet. And it was one of the biggest major steps that we'd ever seen these platforms pretty much universally take against somebody with controversial ideas. I mean, Alex Jones, he's a conspiracy theorist and whatnot. Honestly, I don't watch him. I mean, he's pretty funny on Joe Rogan. That's probably the only moment I've ever watched Alex Jones and been like, hell yeah. But I mean, Spotify and a bunch of podcasting platforms like Apple Music, Spotify, I think SoundCloud, Twitter, Facebook, they all essentially teamed up and basically at the same time completely removed this guy from their websites. And that's what these kinds of moves that Reddit has pulled kind of remind me of, where they just wipe out thousands of communities at a time that are talking about different things. It could be dangerous, and there's definitely an argument to be had about it, but this is huge. I mean, these people, they're not just going to disappear from the internet, and if they are that bad, they're going to go to other websites, they're going to go to other platforms, and they're going to continue to do what they do, maybe even more invigorated now because, well, Reddit silenced us, so we might as well just take it to another extreme, or it reinforces their beliefs that, there's a conspiracy against them, It really does create a double-edged sword that, while at one point, you're trying to cut down hateful content, you're trying to cut down misinformation, you're trying to cut down these bad things, but at the same time, you're only really, I guess, radicalizing them even more, you're pushing their ideas deeper into their brain, and they're just going to go to other platforms, which eventually they'll probably get banned from too, but that's a bridge that'll get crossed when people come to it, It's a pretty crazy situation, and I think that it should be talked about more. There is definitely a public discourse to be had. YouTube comments aren't generally known as being a great place for conversation. It's been pretty rough to try and have civil conversations there, but let me know what you think about this whole thing down below. And with that being said, thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're brand new around here on the channel, follow me over on Twitter and Twitch at @SubToOptimus. Make sure to check out Shop Opti down below. Thank you to my channel members, your support helps my channel tremendously. And until my next video, guys, this is Optimus, well, hopefully not getting banned, and signing out.